Hi, I'm Bart Hanson. I'm the owner and lead instructor for CrushLivePoker.com. The following hand comes from our call-in show that we record live at 2 p.m. Eastern Time every Monday. If you enjoy this video, hit that like button, and if you want to submit to be on the show, take a look at the information in the description. Before we get in the hand, so one of the things that I'm going to be going over in my podcast from this week that comes out tomorrow is I'm a little bit no, I mean, I'm not concerned, but I'm a little bit more aware of my surroundings now that I've moved to Texas. Now, obviously, Austin, Texas, and especially the area that I live in, is a much safer area overall than where I lived in LA. Part of the reason
Right.
why I got out of LA was because it was getting worse and worse, even in the nice areas, and it's certainly no picnic by the casinos. But
Right. I can imagine.
I never felt unsafe at the casinos, or I never felt unsafe that I was going to get that I had to be overly careful about getting robbed or being followed home, and that might be a function of because I was in such a big city in LA. Plus,
Yeah.
I lived in an apartment building, so I kind of knew what was going on. There was a lot of people around, but here now in Texas, I live in a residential area and a house, and these poker clubs, these social clubs, like they have security, but it's nowhere near as I don't feel anywhere near as safe as I did in a casino in LA. The reason why I bring this up is Joey's the guy that if you guys saw like on social media and stuff at the World Series, they got robbed in the parking lot of the Rio, right? Like this past summer when a guy
Correct.
basically what came up to you because the Rio is kind of sketchy too. Like when you walk out of there at night. So I wanted to ask you, how has this changed like your approach to walking out of casinos and safety and carrying cash around and stuff with what
Yeah.
happened to you at the
Well.
Rio?
Yeah. Well, just like for one, I've always just tried, not to carry cash on me. But like the argument of like people, not carrying cash, whatever, especially during the World Series, is like a pretty silly argument because I mean, like guys like you and I that don't play that many tournaments, we're playing cash. We're always going to be carrying cash on us. You know what I mean?
Right.
But kind of like the issue is like especially in Vegas, like everyone walking around with these book bags, like we're literally like a walking target or like walking ducks with these book bags because like everyone knows that poker players are carrying these bags or whatever, and they're kind of sharp to they're filled with something, So in the future, I think not carrying your cash whatever in a bag for one is obviously would be a good idea. They actually make these very thin line like elastic like almost like fanny packs you can wear underneath your shirt or even like a thinner one like underneath your pants like underneath your belt
Hmm.
and you can fit up to like 5K bundles in them. So in the future I think I may be looking into getting something like that. But yeah, I mean what I could say is that definitely if you can have a safety deposit box, I would strongly suggest that. Where I play in Florida, I have a safety deposit box, and I never walk out of there with a dollar. So that makes me pretty comforting. But two players in the last 18 months were followed home like for like many miles and robbed from in the Florida area. So it's definitely a thing. You have a high reason to be on guard down there in Austin. I
So
bet
you
you
so
the poker clubs down there
well
and the clubs here are similar.
so people were just basically got followed home, right? You have to be
Followed
diligent.
home, yeah,
To,
because the thing of it is, like, I'm not exactly sure the hours of your place, but where I predominantly play, it closes at a set time every week, being 3:45 in the morning, left hand, and then it's over at 4.
right.
So like these people they're very hip to like when people are going to be leaving, and the night games are the biggest games. So generally speaking, like they know when the people are going to be leaving, and yeah, I mean, the one instance the guy was followed like 20 miles till he got home, and
And I mean,
yeah, so.
some people in live chat said, "Well, Texas, that they were playing with guys at WinStar, and everybody was packing at the table." By the way, I own a Glock, right? Like
Hmm.
in California, you can't like have concealed. I mean, it's basically
Yeah.
impossible. Here, I think you can. I'm actually not sure the exact law. Although they do have rules in the card house saying that you can't bring your gun inside.
Right.
But whatever. Even if I had a concealed weapon, I'm not gonna pull out a concealed weapon to defend myself against somebody who is trying to rob me. It's just
I mean,
it's
yeah,
not worth
like
my life. It's not, it's not going to
no
happen.
offense, but like no offense, but it's very easy to say in the chat. Oh yeah, you should just be packing. Like I mean,
Right,
like come on,
right, right, right.
like but and then like to add note to that, like I did a lot of research like after and talked to a lot of people. Like a good percentage, like 75 or 80% of these people, like either it's like a fake gun or it's not loaded or it's just something that they want to scare you with, like,
Right,
or
right,
they have literally zero intention of actually using the weapon. But
right.
like if you pull out a weapon on them, then it's like this guy's going to shoot me or I have to shoot him. Like I think you're bringing more harm onto yourself by carrying. Like
So you
in
think
my
you could
own personal,
escalate? Yeah, it could escalate the situation if the guy is actually carrying a
exactly.
gun that had no intention of using it. Um, and the thing you say about safety deposit boxes, and I was always a big proponent of this in LA, although it doesn't seem like they have it. Well, here's a little bit different. Although I might, as I get more trusting of these clubs, I've always been a huge proponent in LA of using electronic players banks, and people think, "Oh,
Yeah.
I want to have my money off the grid." The funny thing about that is that supposedly there have been stories where, on the very, very off occasion that someone's box got looked at by the IRS, I had heard a story where he had an active players bank with money in it, and they didn't even go at the players bank because the
Oh
casino considers that chips in play. So it's almost even more
wow.
secure. But the players bank was a very, very easy thing. I wasn't even going to the box. I didn't even have to worry about going there. The thing with Texas, because it's quasi legal, Joey. I mean, I feel like I'm confident that nothing's really going to happen. I always have in the back of my head that if there ever was a problem like a raid and I kept money at one of these places, that everything would be seized. Where I don't think you have that issue in Florida. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
like come to terms with that a little bit. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
about
No.
keeping money
Like
like there as opposed to where is definitely legal. But
right.
I would just say I think it's more of a looking and having guards walk out with you, which is not really something that's really readily available to do at the World Series. I'm not a huge fan of the way that Caesars has done stuff at the World Series, and I feel like they should have had much better or should have much better security out there. But you definitely have to be diligent and don't get lazy, and it's something that sort of made me hyper aware in it. And I hope that that situation hasn't affected you too much with what happened. But
No, yeah, I appreciate that. And yeah, and then just like, if possible, always try to like leave with someone, not walking out on your own, and then just being alert. Like when it happened to me, I had just played whatever, super long session. I was walking out, like I was half asleep, it's 5 in the morning, it's just like you're not aware of your surroundings. All you can think about is getting home and going to sleep, you know what I mean? So it's
right,
just like,
yeah.
with if at all possible, like have a couple. A lot of people play late, but like try not to be by yourself. Be alert. Like have a cup of coffee and just be aware of your surroundings. Anything can happen, and in 15 seconds, your life can change. You know what I mean?
Right, right,
So
right. And some people are pointing out they do have security at these Texas clubs that will walk you out to your car, which is obviously nice. They had
okay,
that
cool.
incident with the 3-bet panda who got shot over here
Yeah, you got
in
shot in the
Austin.
back, right?
Yeah, but I think that it's actually helped the community. And if the clubs didn't close down after that, then they're probably not going to close down. But anyways, you got a hand for us, right? I
Right.
just wanted to talk about that a little bit. You got a hand from us from what,
Yeah.
Daytona?
Central Florida cardroom. I don't necessarily
Okay.
want to say like
Okay.
exactly where it was, just
Yeah.
for my own selfish reasons, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, it's more of just a function of kind of just like the stakes and the kind of player pool in general. And the hand is somewhat interesting, but not like super interesting. But
Yeah.
whatever. I get a very brief description of villain in hand. He's a regular in the pool, late 30s, early 40s.
Mhm.
Sorry, my voice is a little scratchy. Middle Eastern guy. He's been one of the biggest losers in the pool like the last 6 to 9 months. Very,
Mhm.
very friendly. Plays all the time. Very, very loose, but in a passive sense. Plays most hands via like a limp call or very little aggression factor. Very, very little three bets, like top 1% three bets, and just but very sticky post flop. Like to see a turn and river, and then I mean, just one of very indicative of the player pool, but not
Right.
scared by any means either.
Right.
So,
Right. Right.
we're playing 5-5-10 mandatory three blind game.
Yep.
He opens it up with a limp in the hijack. I guess I could say effectives. He's 1250 and the button has 1,000, but I'm sorry, the big blind has 1,000,
Okay.
and the limper is 1250 effective. I cover, so
Okay.
the big blind is really important.
Right.
But I cover his 1250.
Mm-hmm.
He limps in the hijack, and I make it 45 with jacks. Suits are irrelevant. It's rainbow.
Okay.
So limp 45, big blind calls, and the limper calls.
And you're on the button, right?
I'm on the button, yeah.
Okay. So three ways, limp, you make it 45 with Jack Jack. Seemed pretty standard. Probably not. It's also standard for this guy to make a late position, just open limp, right? He's probably
Yeah, I mean, like literally, like positions are like irrelevant to him. He just like, he just like, I have X hand, I'm gonna limp. You know what I mean? So it's just like, there's nothing too in depth about it.
Right.
But yeah, we take it three ways, and we get a 9-7-6 rainbow flop.
Okay.
And checked all the way over to me, and in general, this is going to be like a board that's going to hit them a bunch with like, pair plus straight draws, even some two pairs. I mean, like they're pretty. I mean, they literally made them call with like any two suited cards. So it's a board that I should be concerned with, but also need a lot of protection.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also just not going to like. I'm not really too worried about bet folding these people, whatever. As long as they're short, I bet on the larger side 105 and so 145.
Okay.
Big blind folds and the limper calls, so we're heads up to a turn.
Now let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
So this is where I find kind of what's interesting and where I feel like some people have gotten ahead of themselves with the new sort of computer simulations, whether you want to call it solvers or not. I know that you've played live poker for a long time because I remember playing with you in Ohio in 2013 or whatever.
Yeah.
So if this game is like kind of like a blast from the past, which it sounds like, I'm talking about like similar to like when I used to play in LA, like in the late 2000s. So where I feel like, and you can comment on this, where people have sort of gotten ahead of themselves or they start to out-level themselves is they look at this and you look at your opponents here in this particular situation, the two big losers in the game, guy limping, he doesn't know position. And they're like, well, I can't bet this flop because it favors my opponent's range more than my own. So I'm going to check. Like it favors their range more than my own, so I'm going to check. And my response to that is that, I mean, the whole reason why you do that is number one, so that you don't get blown off of the equity in your hand when somebody else realizes that this board favors them more than you and puts pressure on you in the form of semi-bluffs, pair plus straight draws. But correct me if I'm wrong, Joey, these guys are just going to call, right? Like it's like you're
just not going to see that at this level. I mean, like it's just not a thing. And like especially with like my hand, that's like a little bit more involved. I mean, if you want to make a case for like, if you have like aces or kings hands that need like less protection, and you want to make like a case for taking like lines for those reasons, like you know what I mean? Like I could start to get on board with that, but like right when I was starting to get more in depth with like running solvers and getting on board with GTO, like in like mid 2017, early 2018, I was like kind of like working with things like you were talking about with like we're dealing with range and in these games, and it's definitely counterintuitive, and I was suffering in my win rate with it. Like it's just not a thing, you know what I mean? They're just gonna like try to realize their equity and call. They're just gonna see a turn, I have a straight draw plus a pair, I'm gonna call, and that's it. It's not anymore.
So there's nothing more.
That,
yeah, there really isn't. And usually, if they raise you, unless they're like a very aggressive type of player, they're going to have two pair plus. Now there are guys that that are different that you'll just bet call, right? You know what I mean? You might you'll just bet call with it.
There's a handful of guys in the pool that I'm just gonna play for it for 1K. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's some guys in the pool where I'm gonna see a turn, and then there's like a good chunk of them where I'm just gonna like giggle inside and just be like nice hand and muck my hand.
Yeah. All right. So the limper calls. Okay.
He calls. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we're heads up to a complete deuce turn.
Okay. So deuce X on the turn. Yeah.
That's 345, by the way.
Okay. Yep.
And again, for the same reasons, like when he calls here, he's going to have like tons of those pair plus straight draws, which is really what he's heavily weighted towards. And he's just going to see a turn regardless if I bet like, like half, 2/3. I decided to bet like nearly full pot with like 3 big chips, 300 into 345.
Okay, 3 big chips, by the way, oversized chips, right? That's the thing. I love to spike the pot so that the guys can see the size of the pot if they ever want to call down with a 9 or something like that. All right,
Yeah,
so hero bet's
so
300.
that's like 2013 CLP
Yeah, exactly. So check hero bet's 300.
into 345,
Yep.
and he tanks for a long time, like a long time. Like gives me like the stare, whatever, and calls. And I'm like quite pleased, whatever. And I, still have him on exactly what I thought he had on the turn. Pair plus straight draws, a 9 where he's getting sticky, or that's essentially it.
So he has like what, like 800 left in his stack, and the pot's like
Like eight,
945.
like eight, yeah, like 850, I believe. Yeah, 800 somewhere in there.
Yeah. Okay.
So the river is a queen, which is a pretty pure river.
Queen X.
Pure in the sense, yeah,
Yep.
clean in the sense that obviously his hand shouldn't improve, but like even though with the hand you're just like you were talking about before, like it's a little bit stickier to get value now because it's like an overcard to like his hand, but it
Right.
should be kind of like irrelevant to my holdings. You know what I mean?
Right. Like I feel like
So
you could value own yourself here if you bet against like Queen 8, right? Like he might have Queen 8 here, right? Like open ended.
right.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't think he has Queen 8 offsuit pre-flop. That's pretty loose.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, 4 combos of Queen 8 suited. That's like one particular
Right, right.
combo.
But
Whatever.
but there's
And
really no
and
and then occasionally you might lose to like Queen 9 or Queen 7 that have basically held on, right?
Queen 9, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't think he's calling just a naked 7 on the turn for pot. So like I think the only hand that it's Queen 9 suited for 2 pair and those Queen 8 open enders that made River Queen or whatever.
Mhm. Mhm.
So and he checks,
Right.
and then I decide to
I would
go
bet
really
before
thin here.
yeah, before you even say what your sizing would be, I would bet
Okay.
like I might I might bet smaller than what you did on the turn. I might bet like 250 here to 300. 250, 275, something like that.
Yeah, I threw the old same bet out there with 300
Okay.
again.
Okay. Hero bet's 300.
So
Yeah.
leaving him with I believe we said 500 behind whatever was in the note.
Yeah, I mean you said he had well, so
1250 to start there.
yeah, something like that. Yeah, so like 500, 550. So you bet 300 and 945.
Exactly. Yeah.
Queen. So you raise to 45 over a hijack, open limp, big blind calls, hijack calls, 976 rainbow. Check to you, you bet 105, big blind folds, limper calls, 345, turns a deuce, check, you bet 300. I like that sizing too, because I don't think he's folding his pair of straight draws. He calls 945. Now you get basically a clean river, except that it's an overcard to a 9. Like you'd probably rather see a 3 here or pair the deuce.
Yeah, of course.
Right,
of course,
right.
Of course.
But now the pot's 945. The river's a queen, so it's 976 deuce queen. Check, and you bet 300 here into 945.
Yeah, just giving him like like 4-1, and he's just gonna throw his hands up in the air. Just literally when you give these people like 4 or 5-1, they're just like, I want to see your hand.
Right.
So it's one of those things, and he just snap goes all in, like within like 3 seconds, like snap goes all in
for like 800. So
correct.
The pot is probably somewhere around 2050, and it's like maybe 500 or so for you to call, right?
Yeah, so we need like 20% or so.
So, I mean, what's interesting here is that if this guy fits into that sort of loose passive type of guy, it's the check raise bluffing frequency here on the river is very, very, very small. But
yeah,
sometimes when you look at it, if you said the suits were entirely rainbow, like 976 deuce, rainbow, no flop suits, no turn suits, it almost seems like he slow played the nuts, right? Like this is like 10-8 or nothing. I don't even know. I mean, you're sizing here on the river 300. Occasionally, I guess you might get a guy to like check raise all in with like queen 9 or some sort of queens up hand that like rivered it here at the end. I have a hard time folding sometimes to these guys getting a price like this of like 5-1. Although I have seen some weird stuff go down. I mean, it's very, very difficult for me to say whether or not this should be a call or a fold because I think it's extremely player dependent. I mean, we're already on an outlier anyways with some of the stuff that you were doing. So I think it really depends really on the player. It's extremely hard to say
Right.
because I've seen guys get wacky with it and they think, oh, you're betting really small. They're just going to move all in because they don't think you have a strong hand, or they just always have it. So it's hard for me to answer, but
Yeah.
that's how I would think about it. So what ended
I
up happening?
well, two things I'll say real quick. Like one, he's definitely a guy who overvalues like value hands. So I definitely think he would shove queens up on the river,
Hmm.
but it would be something that he would like think about for like at least like 15 seconds. Like, oh, I made queens up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I guess I'll go all in. Like, so like the instant all in is like, oh, like I had
Oh,
a
so
plan
this
to
was
do this.
a bet pacing thing. That's a very important. So it's a
Exactly.
pacing thing. Okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's a snap all in. Okay.
But it was a little unusual. Like usually when you see like a bet followed by a pot size bet, like they just can't help themselves. They lay the trap on the flop, but then they can't help themselves but to jam the turn. So I was
Right.
a little surprised to see him check three. Like if it was a flush draw board, I would probably call pretty quickly, just because
Right.
there's no way they would slow play on a flush draw board for three. But
Right.
on a rainbow
Right.
board, I'd still be kind of surprised, but like as a pacing thing, I was just, I just don't see it. So I folded and I was always going to fold. That was always going to be the plan, but I was a little surprised to see it, to be fair.
Right. Right.
So,
Did you ever see what he
so,
had?
so funny enough, I folded and I don't like to really ask when we're playing, but like he was there like 4 or 5 days later
Hmm.
and I asked him like, hey, do you remember that hand where, you check raised me all in on the river? And
Hmm.
he was just kind of spinning his tires. I'm like, yeah, the river was a queen on the river. He goes, oh yeah, the queen. I made the straight. I'm like, what do you mean you made the straight? He's like, yeah, the river was the queen. I made the straight. I'm like, well, you couldn't have made the straight because you would have had to flop the straight.
Right. Right.
And he kind of just like looks at me from outer space. So,
Do you think
take that for what
do you think he thought it was Queen 8-6, or he was just messing with you?
I mean, I think he probably just doesn't necessarily understand like all the lingo or whatever. He's trying to infer that he had a straight. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, he made the
He's just
straight
not
like,
very
oh, he just flopped it. You mean like he flopped it?
right.
Right,
Yeah, but
right,
it was just funny the way he worded it.
right. No, I think that's a good thing to point out. So bet pacing is always something in terms of. I'm not a huge guy on like live tells, but I think one of the biggest live tells that's actually a thing is bet pacing.
Yeah.
Especially, this is a little bit different because here. So here you're saying he would think about like an in-between hand to do it with. It wouldn't just be a snap all in, which tends to polarize him.
Exactly. He
Right.
would say like, I have a very strong hand, but like, do I
Right.
want to risk the extra? You know what I mean? Like,
And then cases where I see it is when you're bluff catching against someone else has the lead and that person's in position and you're out of position with bet pacing. And there is a card that comes that basically changes the really thick nuts. Like maybe the flush comes in and it pairs top pair. You know what I mean? Something like that on the river. Um,
yeah, yeah,
And even if the guy has it, even if he has thick value in the form of, oh, he was betting on the common, he made his flush, or he had a set, now it's a full house, uh, or he makes trips. This is with the example of like a flush coming in at the end, but pairing top card. All of those hands have to like think about what they're going to do.
right,
Like when
right, right.
something changes, they have to think about it. So if you can sort of, for you guys who are watching out there, if you can sort of suss that out and figure out like this card changes everything, even if the guy actually has it, then if he doesn't have respect for what the card comes out and it's just a snap motion when something entirely changes, that's a really good indicator that they're actually bluffing and that they're
It's very weak. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was literally thinking the exact same. When it's not in the form of like a check raise, but it's like when you're in the form of bluff catching and the board changes and you like flip it to them on the river and they just snap put it in. That's
right.
like incredibly weak. Incredibly weak.
Yeah, because it's just because like even as human nature, like everybody would have to think about something that changes, right?
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
that's a really good indicator. But Joey, I appreciate it. If you like what you've seen here, please hit the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this call-in hand, hit the like button down below. To check out crushlivepoker.com, click on the link in the description. Use the code YTA300 to get the first 30 days for free.